Judy and Paul.
Okay, we'll try to get started on time. I'm Nikki Nelson, President of the League of Women Voters of Davis County. I welcome everybody here. And we're going to get started with Boy Scout Troop 78 that will lead us. Andrew Tingey will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Parker Hansen will give us an invocation.
The audience would please rise. Color guard attention. Color guard forward march. Proper hand salute. Color guard post the colors. Color guard salute. Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2. The audience may now be seated. Color guard reform ranks. Color guards return to ranks. Color guard dismissed. Please prepare yourself in the manner you are accustomed for our invocation by our chaplain aide Parker.
Dear God, we're grateful to be here together, and please bless us that we will be able to go about the rest of our day with safety, and please bless us that we'll be able to learn from our leaders, and we can hopefully learn from them. And we say these things, amen.
Thank you very much, Boy Scout Troop 78. So I'm a paper and pencil person, and I forgot my script, so bear with me. It's on my phone. As I said, I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Davis County. I hope you know that the League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, and we do not support candidates or political parties. Our mission tonight is to help voters learn about candidates and issues by hearing from the candidates themselves. We want to thank Syracuse for the opportunity to co-host this Meet the Candidate events. We especially want to thank Cassie Brown, who was quite instrumental, or your city recorder, who was quite instrumental in making this event happen. This Meet the Candidates is being streamed live, I believe, and recorded. So you can find the recording, or your friends and neighbors that couldn't attend can find the recording on the Syracuse website and on our league site, lwvutah.org/local leagues. We're also collecting questions from the audience on 3x5 cards. We have our volunteer Anne here to collect questions, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. So thank you all for coming again, and special thanks to our candidates that are running for office. And our candidates are Drake Males, Paul Watson, Julie Robertson, and Brett Cragen. And I believe that's in the order they'll be on the ballot. The way the panel works is each candidate has 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then we proceed to a timed series of questions and give the candidates 1 minute for their conclusion. We rotate through the candidates so that each candidate has at least one chance to answer the question first. Our timer is John Logan, and he'll give the candidates a 1 minute 30-second and 15-second warnings. The panel will last about an hour, and we ask the audience to hold their applause until the end. I did also want to say that the election is November 21st, and ballots will be coming out the week of October 31st, which is next week. So be sure and vote, and you can either mail your ballots back or drop them off at the Syracuse City Hall until 8 p.m. on Election Day. Okay, we'll get started, and we'll start with Drake. And again, Drake, you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Tell us why you're running for office, what relevant skills and experience you have that will help you do your job well. Tell us 2 or 3 of your priorities.
So my name is Drake Males, and I have worked in public service since 2014. First with the City of Provo for the Public Works Department, and following thereafter with the federal government and the Air Force up at Hill as an engineer. And I decided to run for office because I felt as though we needed people and this is not just myself, who in office who wanted to slow down and wanted to make sure that the city that we live in, Syracuse, is the city that we want to live in the future, that we want to be able to enhance the living in our city, and that we want to make sure that the city in which we live is sustainable in the future, that we're not just relying upon runaway development or continued development, that we want to make sure that this is somewhere we want to be for the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And that is in part of why I decided to run. And my desire is to do just that, is to look at the long-term goals and desires of what we want. And I hope that we can all do that together. That's all.
Make sure you got to push down on the button for the mic to be on.
Oh, do we,
Okay.
are they not on if we don't push down?
They should be.
I think they're on. Okay, just got to get close.
I was just too soft-spoken.
Okay. You can even pull that toward you.
My bad. I'm a little hesitant with this.
You get more chances.
Okay, thank you. 7 more.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us tonight, and thank you for all those in attendance. It's important that we as citizens are involved, and I'm glad to see a good turnout. So my name is Paul Watson, and I have had the privilege of serving on the Syracuse City Council for the past 2 years. My wife, Allison, and I have lived in Syracuse for 16 years and love raising our 2 children here. I have a bachelor's degree in marketing and economics from Utah State University. And 10 years ago, I started and have since been running my own property management company and now have an office here in Syracuse. I don't consider myself to be a politician, but I have a desire to continue to serve the citizens of Syracuse. I feel I offer a level head and common sense when evaluating the challenges that face our city. I believe we need council members who will listen to citizens, exercise fiscal responsibility, and protect private property rights within our city. The West Davis Highway will offer new opportunities and challenges for our city, and I will work toward preserving commercially zoned land so that new businesses can come to the city and have space to build. I'll make sure that high density developments don't exploit our mixed use zone and bring apartments with little to no commercial aspect to the development. I will continue to work toward achieving a balanced budget each fiscal year. While serving on the council these past 2 years, I feel I have listened to the citizens of Syracuse. I voted to preserve Legacy Park and ensure the city upheld their commitments. I voted against an industrial zoning change in an area surrounded by residential homes. I voted to move a hotel approved by a previous council away from a school. I voted against several developments trying to exploit our mixed-use zone for high-density developments. And I work with Mayor Mon and other council members on our most recent budget to achieve a balanced budget with no tax increase from the city for our citizens. As a new council member 2 years ago, I had to make tough decisions to solve critical staffing issues with police and fire departments to ensure our city would be properly served and protected. I have enjoyed serving the citizens of Syracuse and look forward to the opportunity to ensure our city has a bright future. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Julie Robertson, and I've been in Syracuse for 22 years. I've been married for 40 years and have 5 children and 6 grandchildren. I'm running for office because I love and care about our city. I have lived here, like I said, for 22 years. And as a parent and grandparent, I want to keep the city a great place to raise a family. I have the experience and community service necessary to be an effective city council member. I've served as the advisor for the Syracuse Youth City Council for many, many years under 3 different mayors. I'm a registered nurse. I support the cognitively impaired and special needs people that live in our communities to ensure that their standards of care are upheld. I want to ensure that as our city continues to grow, we don't sell ourselves out. We can grow, but we need to do it right. Let's build a city that we can all be proud to call home. I'm focused on balanced and sensible development. Our city is growing, and with growth comes the responsibility to ensure that it is managed in a way that preserves our environment, protects our natural resources, and enhances our quality of life. I will advocate for city planning that promotes green spaces and creates a thriving economy while considering our environmental concerns and keeping taxes low. Thank you for being here.
Brett?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I too am grateful to the League of Women Voters in Syracuse City for co-hosting this event, and especially I'm happy that you are here. One of the things that I think is very important is citizen involvement, and just from the few minutes that I've had to spend with many of you tonight, I have learned new things and have a little bit different perspective. One of my goals is to, and this is maybe a little bit preaching to the choir, but having citizen involvement and citizen input on the decisions that are made. I've lived in Syracuse now for 17 years. I have 8 children. Each of those children have attended Syracuse schools. I live here, I shop here, I recreate here. This is a place where I want to be. We lived in 3 residences during that time, all here in Syracuse. I'm an attorney in my 24th year of practice. While I've been in the community, I did spend 1 year as a member of the Syracuse Elementary Community Council. I also spent 4 years as a member of the Planning Commission. 3 of those years I acted as chair. In addition to citizen involvement, one of my other priorities, which I think is critical right now, is the proper development of the Antelope Island corridor right below the bluff. With this new highway that is opening up, we have an opportunity to provide revenue to this city that is not only needed, it's going to be very important that that revenue is there. We are losing some money from development of residential property. That is something that needs to be done. It needs to be done in the right way. I've had some background in many areas that helps me to become a valuable member of the team with this council. So thank you.
Thank you. The next question is 2 minutes, and we'll start with Paul. Interest rates have gone up, but housing prices have not dropped. What are your ideas for assuring affordable housing in your city? Are zoning changes needed to make housing affordable for our children?
Sure, thank you. So one thing to keep in mind, we live along the Wasatch Front. So we have mountains on the east, we have a lake on the west. So we have a finite amount of land. So land is going to continue to get more expensive. Housing is going to continue to get more expensive. However, I don't think that means that we as Syracuse have to take on every affordable housing option. Sometimes I think high density is associated with affordable housing. But when you look at high density housing, it comes with, these recent apartments are going for, a 1-bedroom, $1,500 up to a 3-bedroom for $2,300. This is the most expensive per square foot type of housing. So I think we need to be mindful that while we need to keep in mind that, yes, we need to focus on potentially options for affordable housing. There's other options than high density, accessory dwellings, basement apartments, single family home rentals as well. For the renting option. When we're talking about more affordable housing, it doesn't mean we need to go from all R1 straight to high density. We can, look at R2 and R3. We can look at PRDs. We can look at other options to make housing more affordable, but ultimately the market is going to guide and direct what housing prices are. Syracuse City is not going to get into the housing business. We're not going to build housing and subsidize it. So we've got to be mindful. One of the things I think we don't want to do is abandon our general plan and start creating islands of different types of zoning that don't belong together. And so if we're going to make concessions for slightly higher density, maybe an R3 development, we're not going to want to stick that in an R1 zone in our general map. We might have to consider looking and amending our general zone map to see if it makes sense to increase density in some areas of the city. Thank you.
Julie?
With the apartments along Antelope, I think we've done more than our part in helping with rental housing quotas. What we need now is home ownership in the form of more homes, townhomes, and condominiums with a vision of open space, trails, and bike systems. Also, park and rec opportunity. We need to be intentional in our growth, to develop a plan and to stick to it, but we don't need to be desperate. Let the infrastructure lead out. Let's slow down. Let's plan it better.
Oh, no, that's not a problem at all. This is a problem that exists in most of Utah. This isn't just a Syracuse issue. There aren't any starter homes anymore, and that is a problem. And I'm not sure that even if rates lower in the future, that's going to resolve anything. The studies that I've reviewed don't indicate that it's likely that values are going to decrease significantly at all. I think in the city right now, we have a good mix. I think that the prior council has done a good job trying to bring different types of housing to the community that cater to different people. I don't know that we need more apartments right now. I think that there needs to be, rather than that, a focus on commercial interests rather than apartments or those kinds of things. There are a couple of ideas that I've seen that have been done in different states, items or properties such as condominiumizing, if I could say that word right tonight, instead of apartments. That would give people the opportunity to go in and actually purchase property. They would be able to obtain equity in that property. There would be tax benefits to them and to the city. And they would have an opportunity to sell, hopefully with some equity in the future. I think that that may be an area potentially to look at. I also have seen done in different states, not in Utah so much, where residential developments have come into play that they actually spot zone particular areas inside of those developments where there's more affordable housing that is brought in as part of remedying a situation. This is not an easy solution. The state is trying to mandate that this be taken care of. They issued a study with 24 ideas. I think that most of those won't work in Syracuse, but the efforts that have been made have been good. And I think that there are options that can be taken care of. Sorry for running over.
Yeah, Drake.
Ideas for affordable housing. Perhaps the part of the solution is in the housing we already have, and that allowing people to utilize their property for putting an ADU. Perhaps we should remove the city code restriction about the owner occupancy and allowing people to not live in the house, but rent out the basement and the top floor. Those are all potential options. Or maybe not allowing an HOA to dictate if whether or not that person can rent out their basement. These are all potential options that we can execute now. Another option that the Davis County is trying is, it was in KSL, they talked about a $50,000 1% interest loan that they were going to offer to people to buy down and to make things more affordable. That might be something we could consider as a city. Or there could be, we talked about with some of you all about not allowing developers to rent out all the townhomes. They would only be able to rent out 20% of the townhomes in a development. The rest of them have to be owned. There's all different kinds of options that we could consider, but it's really about what we want in a city. Do we want it to be a city for people who are just starting out, or are we trying to gear it towards people with established families and incomes? Thank you.
Thanks. Julie, the next question, 2 minutes. This question is about the city budget. What are the main revenues and expenses in Syracuse? Is there a better way to plan and manage the budget? Can the city afford to hire needed employees such as police officers? And do you support changes in local taxes or fees? And that's a 25-minute question, but try to give us your thoughts in 2 minutes.
Not one question. Mhm. Well, the main revenue by source is sales and franchise taxes, charges for services, followed by property taxes and other smaller revenues. Our expenses are out of services, first being police, administration, fire, public works, parks and rec, and so on. That's one of our biggest challenges that Syracuse City faces, is maintaining our level of service to its citizens. Because we have grown from a small farming town to a thriving bedroom community, and we will continue to grow, it's going to create challenges. We want to keep a high level of services, which means that we will need to add staff and we will need to add equipment and vehicles and other resources in order to ensure that the needs of the citizens of Syracuse will be met. I will work hard and strive to try to keep our taxes low while providing great service to our citizens. It's not an easy challenge, but it is important to me to not raise taxes.
I think that she mentioned the revenues very well and the expenses very well. We're dealing with property taxes, sales and use taxes, licenses and permits and services that are brought in. And then, of course, the expenses are providing benefits to the city. Again, I think City Council and staff have done a great job thus far in very challenging circumstances in order to get the needs met for this city. And I think that's the most important thing, is to make sure that the needs that we have, making sure that there's adequate police protection, health protection, the roads are taken care of, infrastructure and those kinds of things are being addressed as best that they can. Nobody wants more taxes and fees. If needs aren't being met, though, then an additional financial burden may be necessary. But I think that the focus should be on commercial and other development that will bring more revenue to the city. And with more revenue comes the ability to take care of these services. One thing I think I was watching a budget meeting that the city was putting on, discussing the city budget. And I remember, I believe it was the police chief, and if I've misstated this or misquoted it, I apologize, but I think that the thinking behind it is still appropriate. He mentioned, he stated what he wanted and what he thought would be a good thing for the police department to have, but he closed his statement with basically, we appreciate what you've given to us and we'll make it work. And I think that with this situation that we're in right now, that's the attitude that we need to have, we do the best we can with what we have. We maximize the revenue. We make sure that expenses are taken care of the best way, just the way that, you know, any personal person would in dealing with the budget, and then ensure that the needs are taken care of, and then work from there. But as has been done and as can continue to be done, we'll make it work.
Thank you, Drake.
So I read the auditing report for last year's budget. It was a very dense and complicated read. I think we should do some pie charts at the very beginning to make it a little easier to understand. But what struck me the most is that 32% of the budget was coming from grants and contributions. So those are things that we may not necessarily be able to count on in the future. And it's perhaps unwise to build our budget on those items. And a lot of those contributions may come from development, from improvements from developers. From what I could tell, I am not an accountant, I'm an engineer. So I think, could be wrong, that $10 million was coming from developers, things that we can't count on continuing to happen in their improvements for the city. And for example, the sewers and the water and such. I do think that a wise thing for the city to consider would be creating that sales tax base from businesses, that we can attract people to our city and help them make sure that get them to help us make sure that Syracuse that we have the quality of life that we have decided is appropriate for our community. It's really a decision about what we think is important and whether or not we are willing to pay for it, essentially. And so the question is, do you support changes in local taxes and fees? Yes, as appropriate to the desires of what we want as a population. The city population decided they didn't want the park that was bonded last year. And that was an appropriate response from them about what we as citizens wanted.
You, Paul?
Thank you. So as mentioned before, sales tax is our number one revenue source, followed by property taxes as general categories. And personnel these are our biggest, this is our biggest expense as a city. So do I think there's a better way to budget? I think we're pretty darn thorough in our budgeting process. We have a budget retreat every year where we spend an entire day listening to all department heads as far as what their needs and wants are, what, staffing needs they have, what equipment needs they have as well. And so we spend a fair amount of time going over that budget, assessing the needs of our each department and how we are going to serve the citizens of Syracuse. So I think we're pretty thorough in the way we go about budgeting. Can the city afford to hire needed employees such as police officers? Yes, I think we, like I said, 2 years ago, we had to do a little bit of a tax increase because we were at a critical point where we weren't staffing our police department. But I think we're doing much better now, and I think we're in a much better place. And yes, we've filled most of our key roles within the city. Can we always have more personnel? Yes, but just like, we with our personal budgets have limitations, we as a city do not have unlimited revenue. And we as city council members have a responsibility to be mindful of how tax dollars are spent. So yes, I think we can make do with what we have. And I think it's important to focus on making sure that we have a balanced budget each year with new commercial development. And, as I've said, I want to focus on commercial development, making sure that we're preserve those commercial lands. I think we're going to see an increase in sales tax. I don't think there will be a huge need for tax increases. We've just got to be patient and live within our means.
Great, thank you. The next question, we start with Brett. It's about 1.5 minutes that you have. Is Syracuse finding the right balance between agricultural, homeowners, renters, small businesses, and large businesses? And we had an audience question about business and community growth, as well as protecting the natural beauty.
Okay. Well, and this is obviously a subjective opinion. I think that good efforts are being made to strike the proper balance. We have no shortage of homeowners here in Syracuse. I think agriculture is largely outside of the control of the city in many respects due to landowner rights, but there are some things that can be done for that. I do think the agricultural aspect is desired in the city and needs to be looked at very carefully. At present, I think that we have adequate rental inventory. Small business, I think that things are progressing very well with the small business. I'm not quite sure how that would be defined, but there is more business coming into the city. We've seen that in just the last few years. So the small business aspect is, I think, being taken care of. There is an opportunity, in my opinion, for larger businesses along the Antelope Drive and smaller businesses too. I think there needs to be a focus on complementary business to what already exists in the city right now. But having the larger businesses come in, if it's in that defined corridor, would be a real benefit to this city, in not only from a revenue standpoint, but from a services standpoint and employment standpoint, and would bring a lot of good. The general plan and even along SR 193, the general plan already provides for these businesses. It's part of the general plan down below the bluff on Antelope Drive as well. So I think that we're in good shape as long as we take advantage of the opportunity that is there and make sure that the right complementary appropriate businesses are put into place. We've got a lot of good opportunity ahead.
Thank you. Drake?
I'm going to steal that word, complementary businesses. And short answer, no, I don't think that there's a balance. I think there is a lack of small and large businesses in the city. And I think that's reflected in the fact that we only have one grocery store in the city that's grown considerably over the years. And it would be nice if we had businesses that were complementary to the residential areas in which we live, that people don't just need to go down Antelope, that they might have things that are closer to them, for example. But with regard to other things such as agriculture and homeowners, I do think that there is a good balance within the city. But I do think that we could create a better city with some more small businesses for perhaps the citizens to operate and own. Thank you.
Paul?
Thank you. So I think we're doing pretty good with our balance between these categories. Agricultural is continuing to shrink, but that's largely due to farmers' right to own their land and sell it when they feel it's time to sell their land. I think we should do everything we can to support and cultivate our agricultural community as long as they want to stay here within Syracuse. But when it's time for them to sell and develop their land, I think we need to support their private property rights as well. Homeowners and renters, I think we're doing good there. I think we've got a good start on apartments, and I think we need to see how that plays out before we make any other decision as far as large high density apartment complexes. Small and large businesses, we've been doing good to improve this type of things. We do actually have a couple of grocery stores. We have Smith's and we've got Walmart as well. But with the West Davis highway, I think we're going to have a lot of opportunity for expansion of our commercial. But we've got, as a council and a city, we've got to protect those commercial zones and cultivate those commercial zones. Mayor Mon just announced this week that we've got Costco that's looking at coming in on Antelope Drive and 3000 West. And so that's going to be a great opportunity for the city to cultivate a commercial zone and cultivate that area with more commercial businesses. Small businesses, I think we've got quite a few great small businesses in the city. I'm a small business owner and had the opportunity to move my business to Syracuse. I think it's important that we as citizens choose to support our small businesses and frequent them to make sure that they're successful. So thank you.
Julie?
Syracuse has done a fairly good job, I think, with the balance. It's been a problem because we're not a drive-through city. We're at the end of the trail. That's been part of our problem. With the new highway, that's going to change. That changes everything. And so it's exciting because we have wonderful, wonderful business prospects now that are so exciting that are going to be coming into our city in the future. But keeping focused is really critical in the upcoming years. What Syracuse will look like in 10 or 20 years will be directly related to who is on your city council and what their vision is for our city or lack of vision.
Okay, thank you. Next question, back to Drake to start. It's about a minute and a half. How will the changes in the Great Salt Lake affect Syracuse, especially if the lake level drops over the next decade? Is air quality the biggest concern?
For me, air quality is the biggest concern because I like having clean air, but it's really about property values. Because if you look back at what happened in Owens Valley in California, not saying that we're going to become ghost towns, but the property values there have dropped precipitously since that lake dried up. And so if we want to ensure that we have the tax base for the services that we want, or that we want people to live here, then that will be an impact on the city because we're at the end of the trail right next to the lake. And so that will be, not even to mention the tourists who won't be traveling through, the over 1 million people who come to see Antelope Island every year. That could fundamentally change as well. And so, yeah, there are other impacts on the city other than just air quality.
Paul?
Thank you. So this is stretching my level of expertise, but I reached out to Brian Steed. He's the commissioner of the Great Salt Lake. I don't know if you knew we had a Great Salt Lake commissioner, but we do. And so I know Brian. I've known him for a long time. So I reached out to him and chatted with him. I think air quality is a big concern. However, I think the important thing that we need to focus on as citizens of Syracuse is making water-wise decisions. So I think we've done a pretty good job of that as a city. You know, we've implemented things, flip your strip programs, and encouraging people to do that. We've done things such as regulating or requiring only certain days that each area of the city water, which has greatly reduced our water usage. Secondary water usage is the largest water usage that we have. So we're all going to have to make a concerted effort to be water wise and make sure that we're being good stewards of the water. Now, the lake levels in some places have risen as much as 5 feet this year after one good winter. So we were able to refill our reservoirs and increase the levels by 5 feet. And so, the levels may wax and wane. There are certain things that they're doing, at a state level to help move water from one area to the other. But, air quality, if it gets to that point, they can actually apply certain things, certain chemicals to the bed to stop the dust and lay gravel down and things like that. But it comes with a price tag of about $1.5 billion. So we want to make sure that we're good stewards and are exercising, city code that helps us preserve and conserve water.
Julie?
Being a nurse, air quality is a big concern. I see the bloody noses, watery eyes, and irritated lungs with my clients. Dust pollution is a problem all on its own, but we have a bigger problem with lake bed dust with arsenic, copper, and mercury. How will the changes affect Syracuse? If not addressed, it will only affect Syracuse negatively. People will move. People will be sick. But it's not too late. This is the good news. I was researched this so much about a year and a half ago. It's not too late to change that for human health and for the lake's global ecosystem. And Governor Cox is working on ways to preserve and increase the water input. It's an ongoing problem. It's going to be a problem, but people are taking it seriously.
Thank you, Brent.
I agree. Air quality is certainly an issue, especially the dust is an immediate concern. There was a study that was put together by the University of Utah where they also talked about the toxins in the air and how over time that could become an issue as well. But the dust part of it is certainly problematic. So I would agree with Paul that there needs to be, what we can do, and we can't do everything, but what we can do is try and ensure that what water we have is able to make it there to knock this dust down. I also agree with Drake that probably a larger issue in my mind is the 1.1 million people. You think about that, not very many cities have that many people outside of the city traveling down their roads during the year. And in 2021, there's just under 1.1 million people. We have a real opportunity over the next few years to benefit from those 1.1 million people. And I think that's incentive to take care of the Great Salt Lake and Antelope Island as well.
Thank you. Going to stick in an audience question. Take 1 minute, which is a follow-up to what Brett was saying. With over 550,000 visitors to Antelope Island and a new highway coming through our city, how will you personally help to take advantage of these to bring more revenue to the city? 1 minute. And we'll start with Paul.
Sure. So in order to capitalize on any visitors that are coming to the city, we have to have services and amenities that we can offer to them while they're here. So again, this comes back to one of my main focuses where we've got to cultivate commercial zones. We've got to make sure that we're focusing on developing those. And like I've said, I will continue to support Mayor Mon and the Community and Economic Development Department to attract good businesses and to make sure that we have things that are going to draw people into our city and make them want to stop and visit and eat and spend their money here and reap the benefits of those tax dollars.
Julie?
I agree with that. I think that's the best thing that we can do is to cultivate economic development. And I think that's the best thing.
Brett?
Yeah, agreed. We have people who are visiting Antelope Island who are coming through Layton and then Clearfield. And then here, I think a lot of those people, if they need anything, are stopping before they get to Syracuse. We have an opportunity for that to change. Also, we have very good people in this city, not only elected officials, but there are staff that I think sometimes are not given the credit that's due for the work that they do. We have sharp people, educated people who understand business, who understand working with businesses. And if given the opportunity to find the right businesses, and again, I go back to this complementary kind of thing, we don't need 10 different car washes in Syracuse. We need businesses that people want to come to Syracuse to participate with, or as they're coming to destinations such as Antelope Island, that they're using the services that are there, and we can do that.
Drake?
I think part is encouraging businesses, but also marketing what we have now. And perhaps if we're going to encourage commercial development along Antelope between the island and other areas that are close by, also encouraging attractive and maybe unique development so that people would want to also stop there along their way. Because the Jack in the Box is great. People like to be there. You can see the long lines. It would be nice to have other things that would attract people as well. And I think part of that is good planning, the planning commission, zoning laws, and whatnot.
Okay, thank you. The next question starts with Julie. It's 1 minute. UDOT is considering widening I-15 from Salt Lake City to Farmington. Is this a good thing? How would you help to ensure that the impact on Syracuse is positive or minimal?
Well, more roads equals more cars, and more cars equal more pollution and more congestion. I think this issue definitely negatively impacts South Davis County the most. They're going to lose homes. It's going to affect their businesses. It's going to affect, the west side of the highway negatively. It could be positive for Syracuse because it will shorten the commute and shorten our travel times and commuting. So that's a positive for it. That's all I have.
Brett?
I mean, I think the widening is a necessity. Some of the information that I've looked at that I didn't quite understand before is that I think that they are doing that to avoid additional congestion in the future. There are some studies that say that if that road is not widened within just a few years, the commute time in South Davis County to get into Salt Lake is going to go from 18 to 20 minutes to 55 to 65 minutes. So having that road widened, I think, is important. And I think that they're trying to do it in a way that makes sense rather than expanding out to the side, making the roads much wider. They're exploring ideas with having reverse lanes in place to where the impact won't be quite as bad. I do think that if Syracuse is able to look at the advantages once that takes place of getting people here, getting people to where they need to go to work, and still having Syracuse citizens or people who are visiting the city use the resources that are there off of this new road, it's going to bring a good deal of benefit to our city. That's why I think it's so important that we focus on that and do it right.
Drake?
I do agree that an 88-minute commute to Salt Lake sounds awful. And I think perhaps the positive impact directly for the city is maybe leveraging this moment to encourage more UTA routes in the city that might connect to the front runner for people who are going to commute in during that awful time during construction. It's as early as 2026 is when they're potentially going to start building on that road. And yeah, I think that perhaps the UTA might be a great opportunity for the city.
Paul?
Sure. So, I mean, nobody likes sitting in traffic. And so I think it's necessary for UDOT to continue to improve I-15. The benefits to Syracuse are going to be shorter commute times for our population to Salt Lake once it's completed. But yeah, UDOT is a state entity. It's going to do what it needs to do. Again, really the benefit that I see from that is shorter commute times for us. It's a good thing that the West Davis Highway is coming online soon, because that will help give another option to commute down to Salt Lake rather than having to go through the construction traffic. But yeah, I think it's a good idea, but it'll be mainly controlled by UDOT. So.
I think I skipped over you, Paul, for maybe.
On which one?
Well, no, we'll do the next ones and we'll start with you if that's okay. We're almost done, so it doesn't really matter. And this is an important one, though. When a new issue comes up, how will you go about gaining information and insight before casting a vote? Does Syracuse provide enough opportunities, including email and social media for public input.
We're starting with me on this one.
Sorry.
Are we starting with me on this one? Okay. Thank you. So yeah, when issues come up, currently what I do is make sure that I'm reviewing the packet. So we can have anywhere from, 2 times a month, we can have anywhere from a 500 to 300 page packet that we've got to review. And there's a lot of things that we need to familiarize ourselves with. So when I have questions or I need input, I'm going to go to experts. So a lot of the time those experts are right here within our city, our department heads, our mayor, other council members that I might consult with. But there's plenty of resources for us to become informed and gain knowledge on the subjects right here within our own city. And our city staff and department heads, they do such a great job of making sure that they answer our questions and help provide us the resources that we need as council members to make good, educated decisions for our citizens.
Julie?
By personally researching, asking questions, attending informative meetings, and spending time. I have the time to spend on issues and the desire to hear from all sides of an issue. Syracuse staff and employees have been very good in my experience personally of listening to me. I enjoy all the discussions via Facebook. Our mayor is very willing to respond to the citizens' concerns. I also receive the city meeting texts and mailers, and that helps keep me informed of upcoming meetings and events, etc. I have the time to spend doing that research. So thank you.
Brett?
With what I do for a living, I have a 4-step process that I kind of follow that I think would be applicable to this. And first thing I do is look at what people or organizations will be most impacted by the decision. Then I look at who are the experts and what do those experts say. Third, I look at, is there a win-win solution? And if not, are there reasonable areas of compromise that can be looked at? Just tonight, I had an experience, I'm excited about this Costco opportunity. I hope it comes together. I did have a chance to talk to a citizen who raised a concern about traffic and having kids cross the roads there. Those are both very real issues, and that's something that needs to be looked at very carefully. So in that situation, I can identify who the people are that are impacted by the decision. We would need to look at what the experts say. Is there a way to help with that traffic issue and to make sure things are taken care of? Is there a way that both sides can win or be comfortable with that? And if not, what areas of compromise can be reached? I think if you follow those 4 steps and get the input from the right people, which is what happened tonight, then good decisions can be made. Better decisions can be made.
Drake?
I think currently the city does a very good job with reaching out and providing information, or more appropriately, the opportunity for for citizens to engage with the city and to learn about what's going on. My personal way of going about is that I like to hear a variety of voices on issues. I read from both sides, both the pros and the cons, and I would look at the long-term impact and also what the long-term goal and short-term goals of the desired action would be, and to evaluate those against the pros and cons of that action. But like I said, I would definitely be looking at both sides and doing the research there. And I appreciate that the city provides such great resources for the council by way of the city employees, since they're the experts and they're the ones doing it day to day.
Thank you. The next question, which is not a question, we'll start with Julie. Julie, you have 1 minute to clarify any point you would still like to make, answer the question we should have asked, but we didn't, and make your final pitch. Why should we vote for you?
Thank you. I'm not running because I want to be an elected official. I'm running because I want to help preserve the community. We have a wonderful community bursting with potential. However, many of our residents are frustrated. We need to find ways to partner with quality developers to increase the availability of attractive quality housing that will raise Syracuse up, cultivate economic development, support our local businesses, and focus on reasonable ways to keep property taxes down. There will always be people who know more or less in any given area. But the question is, do I care enough to learn? And I do care a lot about Syracuse and its future, and am willing to learn. So I ask you to please consider electing me to Syracuse City Council on November 21st.
Brett?
I do care about this city. I spent a year on a community council. I spent 4 years on a planning commission. I think that we have so much positive going for us, and that it's important for that momentum to continue. We've had good people on the council up until this point. A couple of them are leaving. This is not, I haven't done the city council part of it, but I was in planning commission long enough to know that not everybody's going to be happy with every decision. I got jumped on tonight a little bit, which is fine, because of some decisions and thinking that I had in the past on decisions that I made recommendations on. I do try hard to listen to both sides. I do try hard to find common ground, and I do try hard to make the best of situations that are admittedly challenging, and they're hard decisions. But I do very much believe that we have good people, we have a good city, we have great opportunity, and I think that I can help the momentum continue. And I would ask for your vote if our interests align, and if they don't, still vote. Get your friends to vote too.
And Drake?
Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you all. I believe that any one of us would pursue an agenda that has the best interests in mind for the citizens of Syracuse. We all want to enhance the city in which we live. We want to encourage quality businesses, quality development that will lift up the place and the people here. And regardless of who you vote for, I am sure that that will continue in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to have to talk quick, but I think one of the things that we haven't really talked about in talking about economic development in the city is making sure that we're also deploying measures that we can attract industry that will have high-paying jobs. I think that's one of the things that we're missing in the city. I think there's opportunities such as, redevelopment agencies that we've deployed recently that can help with infrastructure that will attract, light industrial or types of businesses that can bring a daytime population. These types of efforts can also help with our housing, affordable housing issues. If we bring in high-paying jobs or those types of employment that pay well, those houses become more affordable when you're making good, strong income. So I've loved my time serving on the city council these past 2 years. Hopefully you've seen that I care about the city, that I'm passionate about making it the best that it can be. And so I look forward to serving another 4 years with your vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our very attentive audience, and let's give the candidates a round of applause. They'll round if you have more questions.